I'm going to ask you to conceptualize the degree of change that you want to make in your career transition. You might not know the answer to that right now at this moment, and that's okay, but the degree of change indicates how much change you're making in your career transition. So I almost imagine a sundial or something like that. And with each level of change that you're making, the degree is larger, the angle is larger. If you're just changing roles, or you're just changing companies, then the degree is pretty small. If you're changing the company and the industry, the degree is larger. And if you're changing the company, the industry, and the role, that's a lot bigger of a change. So let's talk about some of the things that impacts. The smaller the degree of change, typically the faster you can make a career transition. So if you are on fire right now and you need to get out of your current job as quickly as possible, that might be something that you need to take into account. It might be harder to make a transition from marketing all the way into engineering, but if you're making a transition from marketing into marketing at a human resource company versus an engineering company, that might be easier. So then you can always make another shift after that into your preferred job. But this might be a way to make the shift faster if you're making less of a change in the process. So you'll have to think about, how quickly do I want to make this change? And am I willing to make some compromises? Am I willing to find something called a bridge job? A bridge job is an in-between, when you find a job that isn't quite what you wanted just yet, but it helps get you in the direction of where you wanted to go. Question how you're considering your career as a whole. Are you thinking about your career as a ladder where you need to continue to move up? Are you thinking about your career as a jungle gym? This is a newer concept where there's so many different pivots and ways that you can take your career. It's more about the skills that you're learning versus the title that you have. So think about your non-negotiables, what you absolutely need in your career transition, and then come back to, how much of a pivot do I want to make? And how long am I willing to wait to make that pivot? Knowing a really effective pivot with networking, a new resume, all of that can take 6 months to a year. And if you're really going for it and maybe you're making a smaller pivot, 3 to 4 months might be possible. But you might have to make some compromises in that process. I had someone ask me the other day, how do I tell if I don't like my role, the industry, the tasks that I have, my company? How do I tell what isn't a good fit? And that's why I talk about cross-referencing all of this different information earlier on in the previous videos to see how much of a degree of change you need to make. If it's just your company, but you like the tasks that you're doing, then you might not need to shift into a different role. And I can't emphasize it enough. Informational interviews and networking, reaching out to people to figure out what you do and don't like, and to figure out, is it just my company or other companies like this too? Talking to people helps you figure that information out. It's really hard to do without talking to people, or at least watching YouTube videos and doing a lot of research on it. If you're at the place where it's so hard to think about what you like about your current role and you have no idea, I would guess there's probably some burnout in there. You might have to think about what you enjoy outside of work or previous jobs. If it's too hard to think about this job and what you do and don't like, you might have to incorporate some other aspects of who you are as a person.